you know that many of the ICSR national fellows and senior fellows here, they are not very serious like you.
Oh, I see, yes, yeah.
No, yeah, I think I appreciate you for that. And this is something I think when I just flipped through it, I thought this is in the making of a book. I suppose you know that will be able to come up with a book. Many of the ICSR national fellows and senior fellows here, they are not very serious like you.
Oh, I see, yes, yeah.
Who is no, I appreciate you for that. Oh, really? Okay. This is something I think that is just point that is re-emphasized. We first of all we congratulate you, and at the same time now I understand that Dr. Chattopadhyay will be out of the country for the next 2 months. On his back in October, he will be delivering a set of lectures on issue of that is re-emphasized. We first of all we congratulate you, and at the same time. Okay, we have Professor Thomas Isaac. I thought when we were thinking of a person to chair it, given the long association that both these scholars have, I thought I could not think of a better person than Professor Isaac. I know his days are too full. However, he managed to kind of be with us. Thank you, Professor Isaac, and we most warmly welcome you. And I also welcome indeed the star of the day, Professor Dr. Sri Kumar Chattopadhyay, and a warm welcome to all of you. So may I request Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac to chair the meeting and conduct the proceedings.
K.J. Joseph. Dr. Sri Kumar Chattopadhyay, and dear friends, the topic of our discussion today is very important for many reasons. One, India is rapidly urbanizing. Two, most of the urban agglomerations have come around waterways, because once upon a time they were the main means of transport, particularly for example, Kerala. Three, but over time, their importance as a means of transport has rapidly come down. Now, with the decline of the traditional use of the waterways, has resulted in the neglect of it. In the absence of a very efficient waste treatment program in the urban areas, these waterways, particularly the waterways leading to the main water bodies, have become drainage channels and dumping ground of the waste. And therefore, the pollution, water pollution has become a major urban problem, contributing to, say, ill health, decline in the quality of life, and a challenge for development itself. But then how do you tackle this problem? It's not that simple as we think. Because of the disuse, most places have been encroached upon. The old drainage channels are no more the way they were in the past. And therefore, restoration of the river and the waterways becomes very difficult. It's not as simple. You cannot undertake ad hoc interventions that will only shift problem from one place to another. So you need to have a new methodology. I have been involved in personally in restoration of waterways in Aleppo. whose density of waterways would be the highest in the country. So it involves total drainage mapping, so that you have scientifically an action plan is drawn up. It would involve appropriate technologies for sewage and drainage treatment. You cannot, many cities in India have centralized sewage treatment plant, particularly unplanned cities. So you may require more regional or local level treatment plan. What is the appropriate technology for that? How do you ensure the black and brown or water, wastewater doesn't directly flow into it? It's a big challenge to design appropriate technologies for this. Then, of course, there is the question of draining some of the and removing the waste, accumulated waste, and so on. Then finally, big social engineering to ensure that they remain so. Which means a change in the mindset of the people in the canal shed or watershed. I think you have to bring in a concept called canal shed, because now these are man-made structures, and therefore natural boundaries may not be there, but canal shed is a very important concept. So how do you bring about this change in the mindset of the people? So these are some of the big challenges connected. And this studies of say six cities experience, I'm certain will contribute to our practice in Kerala also, because this is indeed a big issue, the climate change situation. Our urban cities are very near to the sea coast also. So therefore, now the tidal action results in periodic flooding of the many urban areas. One rain is enough, and water doesn't flow back into the sea because sea level is also rising. So in this context, this is very relevant topic. We will listen to you. Please.
Thank you, Professor Isaac. Good afternoon, friends. Before I start my talk, maybe one or two words about my association of Professor Isaac will help you to understand him as a person, as a scientist. He's not just economist, he's a scientist, really, we consider him. See, way back in late 80s, he was an executive committee member of Center for Arts and Studies, where I was there. And in fact, one day in his office, we were talking. It's a very rainy day, and there was a sort of a mini landslides in part of Ulloor, flash flood. And there is a time when panchayats is becoming important. So he was discussing what really can do and all those. Then over the years, in fact, we developed the panchayat resource mapping program. Days like this, he's taking a class in CDS, boarding a train, reaching to Palghat in Mundu, where we have the camp, and going with us in the field mapping. A state committee member, a professor in CDS, the executive committee member of CES is going in the field along with us in a cadastral map and pointing where there is a well, where there is a small stream, where there is a forest. Again, coming back in the night, next day, again taking class, and again going there. This was in...
I became the executive committee member because I wanted this program of resource mapping. Best way to ensure it to get into the director board.
So, and it was a, it was really eye-opening to all of us. We had a 15 days camp in Mundur IRTC campus, and we are covering a panchayat. He was in a part of a team. And before that, we, in fact, in my motorbike, we are traveling in Atipara to see the viability of this mapping. So a person who really had this sort of a interest and go beyond the discipline and economics, that you don't talk in a larger frame. You try to really go down in the field. Makes it energizes us, those who really go in the field and try to do this work. Coming back here, in fact, when I got this national fellowship, I had a discussion with Professor Thomas Isaac. Then he told that, okay, you can select Gulath Institute to house your project. So accordingly, and of course, Dina Rana is here, Joseph is here. The family is known, it is in CDSS. And so there was a close interaction, and we benefited. We benefited. Because normally, the scientists, we are very happy with our publications. We do research, we have a good laboratory. And that time in the Center for Ocean Studies is one of the premier organizations in India. We had a team all over India. In fact, our directors from outside, Harsh Gupta and Subhadra Sinha, they're all from different parts of India. And we had a very good laboratory. Scientists from other states, they used to come down. From DST, people used to come and work. Then this came, and that changed the life of CES. The CES become, what is called a responsible organization to respond to the societal demand. And it became a referral institute. Any problem anywhere, straight away the collectors, they can call CES. Revenue Secretary can call CS. It has happened. Again, thanks to Professor Thomas Isaac, he put us on that the science society interface, which is extremely important. And many of our ideas got molded on that. So when I wrote this project, is also again, it is on the same line, that trying to really look how really we put science and society together and try to find some of the lasting problems of some of the lasting solutions of the problems that has emanated due to human intervention. So I'll be talking on very urban river restorations and water management, lessons from 6 cities. 6 cities I picked up, 2 cities are from Kerala. One is Aleppo, one is Trivandrum. Then I have Ahmedabad, I have Nagpur, I have Pune and Madurai. Why I have selected these cities, you may wonder what really went on this one. The idea is Ahmedabad has a riverfront, development. It got national award. Luckily, it has not got international award, got national award. Pune is one of the fast growing cities in India. Madurai is nearby, but that is also one of the cities where the water supply started interbasin transfer of water from Periyar. As part of the first interbasin transfer of water in immediately after 1876 famine. It actually took place in 1892. That was the time. And then Nagpur is also one area where the High Court has really came up with a statement that what the Nagpur people are doing, exactly this is the statement, that Nagpur people are not sensitive. They are indifferent to their own environment. So these are the sort of a background, and that was the way why I picked up the cities. So I'll be talking initially urbanization and the water system, how they are linked, what is the impacts, and then what is the case studies and of course the lessons. Now, human intervention started changing the water system from the very beginning. We had water diversion. like we have like a dams, like we have in Kerala now around 62 dams. We divert the water. We abstract the water and revert. Channelization. So the main flow is not in the river, it goes along the canal in the seasonal flow. Then there's a land use change, which impacts the hydrological cycles, movement of water and all those, what happens. Then we have irrigation. Irrigation is taking place. That means the water is being injected in the fields. That takes place. Then we have release of industry and the mining wastes. That's a sort of a thing which really happened. That the waste from the mines, waste from the mining mines, waste for the industries, they are released. There are also release of urban and the domestic wastes. So these are apparently, the first order you try to look into it, and they impacts the river systems. So the human intervention which started from the catchment and also continues till the end. So it has eutrophication, you create organic pollution, it changes the water regime. As a whole lot of a change takes place. So if you try to put like this, the urbanization, the river health, there are actually 6 dimensions in which the work normally goes on. Catchment process has a problem, changed. Flow regime, there's a flood and all those, there's a change. Then the water quality, which is a great importance as in today. Then there's a change in habitat, aquatic and the riparian biodiversity changes. And finally, put them together, a new term has come, what is called that urban river syndrome. Urban river syndrome means a river has changed due to urbanization, hydrologically, hydrographically, geomorphologically, and ecologically. A complete change has taken place due to urbanization. Now, we also try to talk a new urban cycle, water cycle. So normally we know the hydrological cycle and the water cycle, but it changes. Why it changes when you try to look into it? That it has a different way. That now there are landfills on the dump sites, there are pollution, which changes the pattern of evapotranspiration and also the rainfall pattern. Then from the water treatment plant, there is a leakage, the chlorination, which again there's a leakage, which affects the groundwater. Then there are fuel station, there's an underground storage tank. The whole lot of a change is taking place both in the surface and the subsurface. And that is now talked about the urban water cycle. In fact, UNESCO and International Hydrological, the program, they have come out. And this is now being really looked very seriously, that in the urban areas, is a new water cycle has started, where the underground water is getting polluted. And why it is so dangerous, and why it is very important that urban river restoration takes place, and we really pay a lot of attention on that, will be coming through my discussion. Now, when a city forms initially, the main thing is water supply. In fact, there's a group, Brown et al., there's a group of people who worked on this one, that when a city forms, the first task is to supply the water. Then sewage comes, so you try to look into the public health protection. Then there's a flood protection becomes an issue. Then there's a water pollution management. Then you try to look into the water cycle in the city, what happens. And then finally, urban sensitive city. You reach to a state where the intergenerational equity, resilience to climate change, those things becomes important. If we look at today as in Indian cities, we are actually in the first 3. We started supply the water. We are taking care of sewage system, not completely. We have also not properly drained our cities, and we are still have the problems of the flood and all those things. Waterways, cities, and all those pollution management is still in a very nascent stage. And that's the problem. So once the cities start graduating and start developing, the first thing what happens is, when a city is just, think of it that we have a census towns. Municipality has not formed. They don't have the water supply. they get the water from the underground, by the tube wells, bore wells on those. When the municipality comes down, then they started the water system. Pumped water, piped water. This water sometimes abstracted from the surface water, sometimes from the groundwater. When the city really grows, then this dependence on surface water increases. At the same time, its dependence on the groundwater comes down, but not fully. And that I will discuss when each of the city I'll be talking. Now, look for India. India's situation is that we have a, the urban population, although it is 34%, but there is a couple of states like Goa, Mizoram, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. It is more than 40%. And although we talk about the 47%, 48% in 2011, but now if you look into the Kerala operation, it will cross 65%. That's the things. Because when I'll show when we are if you do a what is called a satellite mapping, looking at the settlement distribution, you can see the what is called the surface area has spread over. And that is spreading, that is urbanization in Kerala is spatially spreading. The spatial spread is much higher than the vertical spread, vertical growth, as it happens in other sites. So what happens is, with the spread of urbanization, our surface area increases. That means our infiltration comes down. That is point number one. Point number two is, when the city grows, the waste production, per capita waste production increases. Because, one is, affluence takes place, the city size takes place, consumerism is taking place more. When city is small, you have still type a sort of a rural urban like situation where the waste production, whichever is being done, assimilated within this one. So the outside waste production is less. That happens. Now, Central Pollution Control Board, they have identified 351 stretches of river which are polluted all over India. It's a very conservative figure because they have taken only one parameter, which is called the BOD. Biological oxygen demand. If it is more than, I think, 2, then it becomes a polluted from them because you cannot use for the drinking water purposes. Associated town is 659. And if you look at the priority class, in fact, where more than, by BOD is more than 30 mg per liter, then there are 48 stretches and associated towns 110. In Kerala, they have identified one stretch in Karamana, associated with Trivandrum city, which is a high priority, priority 1 in that towns. Now, so the 10 towns which have identified, because Aleppo has not been monitored by them, but Aleppo has a different experiment with which Dr. Thomas Isaac was involved. And we like to really examine that one. And our own study, CES study, tells that Aleppo water is equally, in fact, it should get priority 1. In fact, Kerala, as if you look today, that we had a systematic monitoring for Vemanad almost for 20 years. We have a monitoring for Killiyar that almost for 20 years. All these situation tells us that they should get the priority 1. Vemanad, in fact, many of our earlier 20 years before, Vemanad or the Kutanad water can be used domestic purposes. Today you cannot do that one. It is totally gone because nitrate concentration is extremely high in those areas, and it is affecting our fish population. Now, let us first look into Ahmedabad city. See, all of you might be knowing that in one film on Amartya Sen, the census board told that they cannot name Gujarat. I hope people will not tell that I cannot name Ahmedabad. Anyway, so Ahmedabad city, if you try to look into this city, it's actually both sides of the Sabarmati. And the city has 3 main things. What are the main things? One is the old city. It is one of the old city, there's during the 14 something, they first started developing a fort. That was, then the industry started developing in that area. Then subsequently the city has grown the other side. or the residential area in the western part. So there's eastern part and the western part, and the western part is basically the affluent classes. Before 1986, Ahmedabad used to depend on groundwater. 88% of drinking water in Ahmedabad city is coming from groundwater. Depth, groundwater depth as on today in Ahmedabad is 67 meters. 67 meters. Just think of it, that to lift that water, they call it submersible, but how many stages has to go and the type of energy which has to come. That is the sort of a scenario. Now, what happened is they have shifted their entire surface water demand to Narmada. So the Narmada is supplying now 93% of water supply. Narmada, Sagar, the distance from Ahmedabad is 500 odd kilometers. That means your drinking water is coming from a surface water, which is in other state, there's in Madhya Pradesh, and you have a whole lot of a 500 odd kilometer has to travel to supply the water. Precisely because you cannot go down farther in the groundwater. And Sabarmati, which is to supply the water, is in such a bad state that you cannot do anything. So the entire water demand for the city now is going to the Narmada outside, and there's another dimension which will be coming. So if you try to look into it, there's another thing also, that it has also developed a sort of a system for sewage treatment. Now the total sewage generated is 1,369, that the water supply, but the sewage generated much more than that. So a group of people, those who are working in Ahmedabad, they have come out that this additional sewage water is actually they are taking out from the ground, underground. Although government statistics tells that underground water use has come down, almost it is basically very 5% on this one, but it is substantial because 92% households in Ahmedabad still have the wells. You will get a parallel situation in Trivandrum, that in spite of having our water supply 24 hours, many households in Trivandrum has wells. They also use the well water. That means groundwater becomes an issue. So the river restoration program, which Ahmedabad starts, if you look into the picture, the 10-kilometer stretch of river has been converted into virtually a reservoir. Both sides has been lined. There's a good, you can see that the pavements have been made, and the whole lot of so like this. Now the river is a satellite image. Both side has been completely, I think, the structure, and this is the side of the rivers. Now, Sabarmati does not flow. Both sides, one side they have made a dam, the other side also. This water is a stagnant water, has to be pumped out time to time. And Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation tells that this is a situation because they followed the Seine River in Paris. That you have two levels of embankments, one is the lower, one is the upper, so there will be no flood. And that time they told the next year, I think Seine has a flood in 2018. Paris has a real flood on this. So that is the flood control, they did it. They have rehabilitated, theoretically, 10,000 families, those who are living beside the river and within the river. In fact, it has really, some people have been rehabilitated, some people are not. They are, earlier people they don't have the access to the river. Now they have access to the river, but you have to pay. So a public space has turned into a commercial space. That was the type of river restoration which has taken place in Ahmedabad. And it's also an example of environmental gentrification. What really in the name of the environment, actually the entire group, those who approach normally, they have gone. Second thing is there are small temples where the people used to have the access. Now they don't have the access. So a whole lot of a change has taken place. At the same time, the water bodies within the city, they have been really neglected. Nothing has been done for them. Groundwater has this problem. Neither there is a people's participation. on the people, people's participation in the activity. So it's a whole lot of a situation where you feel that it's a construction, it's a good construction, but it has nothing to do with what is called the nature-based solutions at that time. Now, look into Madurai city. Madurai city, if you try to look into it, as I was telling, is the interbasin transfer. It is a real problem of the water. It sometimes gets water, I think, once in 3 days. That also happens. All the lakes and the ponds within the Madurai city, they have been a very different, sort of almost degraded. They cannot host any type of water. There's a tremendous problem. And from small streams which are coming out from the Madurai city and joining the Vaigai river, they are all polluted. They are using the groundwater. At the same time, as the water is polluted, the Vaigai river was the polluted, you have a tremendous amount of a problem, you cannot do anything. And this city has I feel is a psychological problem. The psychological problem is that whenever they have a problem of water, they have been told that somehow we have to get water from the Periyar. Because Periyar is standing there, the interbasin transfer can take place. So the problem of water in Madurai can be sorted out by transferring more water from the Periyar. Or the water which they get from Periyar, it is basically used for the agriculture. That portion of the agricultural water you take on this. And that creates the problem. Because Tamil Nadu government are not in a position to annoy the farmer. And they then annoy the Kerala. That fight comes on that. If you try to really look into it, that with the dam size and all those type of a whole lot of issue. But basically it is a problem of the agricultural situation in Tamil Nadu. There's another story involved which is also impacting here. This area, as there is a water shortage, there's basically dryland crops are grown. After this, that means 1992, if you try to look into the historical land use profile, the dryland crops has been changed to the wetland crops. So the water demand is increasing. And Vaigai River is also supplying water to another 6 districts with the canal. So the water between the urban area and the rural and the agriculture has a problem, but they try to divert always this problem that, okay, we have to get from the water. And still today, they've actually proposed a big program, I think around 1,100 crore that we have to get straight away supply from here. At the same time, their own water system within the city are grossly neglected. But now they have made some proposal. Again, this proposal partly, what is called that construction, partly to take care of it. But NGO has been involved. But people are not there. Panchayat is not there. Local self-governments are not there. So the Madurai municipality, that municipal corporation, they think that it should be given to the NGO for development. That's a sort of these are all subtle things that please keep in mind when we will be discussing Kerala on that. Now, if we look into the Nagpur, so the Nagpur name came from a river named Nag. And the Nag river, the upstream of Nag river, if you look into this, in fact, this is from here the Nag river comes. This part goes up. Now, this has a sort of the headwater. Surprisingly, the Nagpur Municipal Corporation proposed that the Nag river has originated from here. You will be surprised that what's really happening. The upstream of that reservoir that has been occupied by the real estate. It has gone. Haldiram has a big, many people have it. And municipality is a group of people, they have to go to the court and tell that look into the revenue map of 18 something, those when the first maps were prepared, this was a headwater. So this is the part of the Nag river, which now Nagpur Municipal Corporation is denying. That's the sort of a thing. So what happened is the Nagpur city developed to use that water. Now it cannot. Now it gone to the another two river. One is Pilli River. There is another river, Kannan River, and they try to fetch the water from there. And there's a Pench, one sort of a reservoir, which is again around some distance, around 35 km away, and they get the water. Again, the same problem comes. Now, what they did, at the same time, they have taken a decision that they will be having 24/7 water. I do not know. I think almost all of you are from Kerala. See, we had once a discussion in Science Congress. Science Congress was in Andhra University. I was from Kerala, and Harsh Gupta, who was our previous director, he was the president of the Science Congress. When we were discussing about the water, everybody was saying in Kerala, water is 24/7, because hardly the cities gets 2 hours, 3 hours, and they're very happy on that, what to do. So all the city planners in India, they feel that they should have a 24/7 water. At least that is their goal. Nagpur also planned on that. So you take more water. Now the agricultural people started fighting. So initially there was a share that Nagpur will get this much and agriculture will get this much. They started drawing more water. 2019, so Maharashtra government has to come out with a policy for this, looking into this rural-urban conflict and try to address that we have to really take care of it. Now, the type of plants which they are looking, Nagpur is trying to really look into the sewage management, stormwater, solid waste management, the lake preservation. So in the paper, if you look into it, everything is there. What is not there is, again, how the people are going to be involved. Although in Nagpur, they divided the work among the Gram Panchayats, Jila Parishads, and the departments, cooperatives, industries, industrial estates, that they should also do some sort of a work. There's a strategic plan developed, and Nagpur riverfront development has now got 2,117 crore. It has been approved by the Government of India. Government of India will be paying 60% of the cost. And it has been approved, and they are going to do this one. But again, there's some amount of involvement of the stakeholders. But there's a difference between the stakeholder involvement and people's involvement. Because normally we thought these two are the same thing. It's not the same. There are differences. Now, come to Pune. Pune, again, now Pune is growing even, it has become larger even than Mumbai. It is of the largest city now in Maharashtra. It also draws water from the Western Ghats, again, from all those rivers, it comes. And 3 rivers which are within the Pune city, they're all affected. Here also the same problem comes. But what it did, it also proposed a river restoration exactly the ditto like Ahmedabad, hiring the same consultant group. And they put a cost 2,619 crore. They put a cost. And now we got for everything JICA. Nagpur is also going for JICA. Pune is also going for JICA. That we will get from them with a soft loan. Government of India will stand guarantee. And the riverfront development means, okay, building embankment, reduce the impact, a whole lot of a thing. All those activities. Construction, construction, construction. Pune has another plan, is very interesting, that they like to put a underground rail below the river. Just think of it. So the Pune is basically in a plateau, and you have the Deccan Trap. Deccan Trap is a basin. From the trap, you are trying to break. That means you are disconnecting the river with the underground. If you put an underground rail below the river, no, it creates, of course, there's a lot of objection going on from different groups, but these sort of ideas in the name of river restoration and keeping the transport and all those. Now come to our Trivandrum. Trivandrum has a problem. We have the problem of water pollution. We got the priority 1 in our Karamana segment. We got I think only 30% of the sewage treatment takes place. And basically our groundwater is affected. Our Veliakulam Lake has a serious problem. Our Veliani Lake also has a problem, but still it is being used. So some sort of things are there. But if you look into the water supply, we started with Arvikara. Arvikara was, I think, 1933-34. That is the time in Arvikara. Arvikara was not sufficient. We went to Pepara. Water we are getting. But within the Trivandrum city, there are 80 ponds, the corporation area, not the Trivandrum urban area, urban agglomeration. Just within the corporation limit, there are 80 ponds, 80. Most of the ponds are, they are totally deteriorated, defunct. Many of the ponds in Trivandrum was spring-fed. Like our, very near to our Dinana's house, there's a pond which is spring water. And west is dumped on that. So we actually forgot that these are the water which need to be used. And, that sort of a problem comes. We also have the problem of the groundwater. Now, Pollution Control Board has prepared the river restoration plan. That has again whole lot of activities under Pollution Control Board, Kerala Water Authority, Thiruvananthapuram Corporation, then the Irrigation Department, and total budget is 215 crore. Because our Kerala people are very modest. So they once we are attending a meeting about the coast, protection of coast. The coastal erosion in Kerala, we have actually around 256, 57 kilometers is very highly eroded. We are a very modest proposal, around 200 crores. Tamil Nadu had 10 kilometer coast very affected. They have a proposal 400 crores. So Dr. Baba, that time our director, both of us went, then I was asking what is happening. So actually Tamil Nadu proposed like a riverfront development. Everything construction. So it goes very high. Anyway, so we had a modest 215 crores. That was a sort of a thinking. And then, okay, we try to take care of this. Now the action plan again, with the lead agency, Pollution Control Board will be working, and different departments, mostly the civil work, but again, people are missing. Now come to Aleppo. As Professor Isaac told, it is not a watershed, it is a canal set. Because we have the canals. Okay. All of you know the location of Aleppo between Bemanad Lake and the sea, and these are okay crisscrossed together when he said that. And these things we have surveyed. So what actually started in Aleppo, why really I have projected in the report on this one, that you started treating the disease from the root. The problem of the river comes from the west. So the waste generation and waste is being generated at the household level, at the industrial unit level. So you have to handle on that. So that started. So the Clean City, Clean Home program, which Aleppo started in 2012, which was well recognized by different people, in fact, even in the UNEP, that provides a very important point for us. And that we should really try to look into. So what has happened is in Aleppo is, after this program which has been launched, involving the Aleppo municipality and the different groups, then Bombay IIT came out with a two summer school. One is in winter school, one is in summer school. And they tried to mark all the water bodies. Okay. Then who came? Cochin University College of Engineering, Kerala local Kila, then government and all those. Look the differences. In other cities, when you are proposing, the educational institutions are not there, means students are not there. People are not there. It's a departmental approach. And the departmental approach has its own sort of limitations as it goes on. So we try to map all the canals, then the solid and liquid waste management at the sources, commercial waste also at the sources, water quality analysis, and the pilot intervention. In fact, I couldn't show you the photograph, someone missed it. There's a small wetland created. One of the canals which is joining with the Kanoli Canal, there's a small wetland created, and there's a group of families who have not been shifted. See, if you compare this one with the other, people have been shifted. In case of Aleppo, people have not been shifted. They have been provided with sanitation facilities, and the drain has been cleaned. It is now clean water. So the source has been treated. And that's the differences. And that's the things which is very important for us really to learn the lesson and take it in further. So the type of intervention here, one, the integrated approach to address both solid and liquid waste problems. The second is decentralized wastewater treatment system. And they have developed different typology of the wastewater management. There's a pilot project. There's a cluster level treatment and also household level treatment. So we got, these sort of things where the people got involved, households got involved, and we started looking them at the source. So I put, even within Kerala, the Trivandrum city and Alapura town, a comparative step. If you look into the lead agency in the case of in Karamana is State Pollution Control Board. In Aleppo, it is a local body. So when we have the constitutional amendment, when you try to implement them, they have to give the authority for them, not with the department again. Entry point in the case of a Trivandrum, we don't have. We have an entry point in Alapura. Alapura started the decentralized solid waste management system. So the approach, one is the people-centric, one is the technocentric. Then the type of activities which you take care of it. Okay, we started the channel characteristics and all those, but here we started involving the universities, colleges, students, and try to really work it out. There's a partner organization, again, large number, and then intervention projects also being worked out. So the basic approach, when you try to really look into it, becomes why I am really emphasizing on that globally river restoration project is taking a change now, not in the same way. Because wherever they started looking into it with the engineering intervention, they failed. So they are coming back to bring people, the stakeholders, how to really involve the stakeholders and how to really go about it. Now, if you look into the 6 cities now, a very interesting story comes. We try to see the surface water, groundwater combinedly. In the case of Aleppo, our main source is groundwater. In Trivandrum, we have the surface water, although some groundwater is used. But in other 3 cities, there are surface water and groundwater. In case of Pune, also, of course, surface water. The river restoration activity proposed, okay, in the case of Ahmedabad, some portion has been done, some will be followed. Other water bodies, again, it is proposed, nothing has happened. The agency for water supply, in case of a Kerala, is Kerala Water Authority. But in case of other cities, they are the city authority that they manage it. And water governance, so in case of Ahmedabad, it is interstate and interbasin because it comes from the Madhya Pradesh. In case of Madurai, it is interstate and again interbasin, Kerala and Periyar, this one. In case of a Nagpur, it is state and interstate. Nagpur also part of the water has to come from Madhya Pradesh. Of course, in case of Pune, it is the state, and Trivandrum, it is state, and Aleppo again the state. Now, what we actually lessons we summarize. 1, urban river syndrome in all 6 cases. In all cities, you see the urban river syndrome. Underutilization of local water resources. That we really have not used the local water resources. So that is being underutilized. Third is the river restoration is a standalone project except Alapura. So Alapura has an integration that we start with this and gradually will be moving. But in all other cases, the river restoration itself is a separate standalone project. Then next is a structural intervention in the case of Ahmedabad, then environmental gentrification comes, because the others are proposal only, so nothing executed. Proposals are mostly structural interventions. And it creates now a potential for rural-urban water conflict, which I'll be talking a little bit more on this one. And then, so what we try to talk is people's participation only in case of Alappuzha, upscaling of Alappuzha experiment. That stands very seriously. That how far we can upscale and the type of lessons you learn from this and move forward. That is the submission. I have another part, but which I'm not talking because then it will be diluted. Thank you very much. I shall be very happy.
It's a formal discussion. No, I don't do D. Narayana often.
Dr. Shikumar, it's a very interesting approach. But my problem is, we cannot say Kerala model versus the rest. It's a Aleppo, it's more of a Aleppo model. In fact, you refer to the pond near my house. Here also, restoration, people's participation has been very low. I'll tell you my experience. We took up that issue. We approached the mayor of Trivandrum, but we couldn't solve that problem. In fact, by the side of the lake, you have a huge multi-storied apartment, and the pollution control official has a flat over there. So when we took it to the pollution control, what happened was we got one version, but what happened under the table was something very different. So we spent many months fighting on the issue, but finally our own elected ward member, who was in the front line of our this thing, he supported us up to a level, and when finally we realized that he is actually playing on both sides, and he is actually supporting the, this is what, and the mayor just couldn't do anything. That is the sort of a situation. So it is not so much of, decentralization or people's participation. Of course, these are nice to talk about, but people, even when people take up these issues, there is a level beyond which we are not able to take it up. Because you mentioned about the stakeholders in the other cities. Here also there are stakeholders. The stakeholders are very, very different. So even when people join together, because we had 3 residents associations fighting on one side, on the other side, we didn't even know who were the groups. Only when something else happened that we could come to know that. So you see, this is one of the largest perennial ponds in Trivandrum. Originally, it had an area of more than 2 acres, but now I think it's only about 86 cents. So it's a very important issue, but I do not know because can you really draw lessons from Aleppo experience? And can you replicate it? I think that is what we would like to hear from you.
Yeah, see, that's why I put one table comparing Trivandrum and Aleppo. Trivandrum approach is departmental, the pollution control board. See, and we could not link it. See, but whatever you say, a lot of things depends on the leadership. Because we got this gentleman in Aleppo. See, so, and that imagination of the leadership that you have to involve, see, from IIT to the ground level, the spectrum. See, just comparing Trivandrum and Aleppo and as a part of methodology, this paper is now coming, I think, one group from Malaysia. I wrote this paper comparing these two. It is being brought out by the Springer and Nature. next month will be coming. I put this contrast. The question is, you have a decentralized planning. Okay, we have a very successfully people's plan campaign executed. Fine. Now, when you come this down level, then the departmental approach and the people's approach, how it differs and where the leadership matters, that you have to accept it. But then, see, that's why, see, like Aleppo is our hope. That finally we have to reach there. We have to upscale it and see that it is being applied and executed. Because one is, it is not only people's involvement alone. The question is, how do you organize the program? That you started handling the issue at the source, at the individual, at the household level. Means from the unit from where actually the pollution starts. So unless and until we address the issue here, then we cannot really, it becomes a problem. So that way, this is a very important, specifically to really look into the Aleppo issue compared to the, it is as a whole, not Kerala we are talking now. We are really telling that Aleppo issue has to be looked into separately.
But I think that still leaves the question open, despite this decentralization. Over 25 years experience, why is it that we have not been able to learn from Aleppo, even in a place like Trivandrum?
That question I cannot answer. That is that is the issue for all of us.
Any one of you coming from any one of these cities other than Trivandrum? Ahmedabad, Nagpur, Pune, no. Some students, how do you critique this?
Yeah. It's between these two modes, Aleppo and Trivandrum. One side you have a completely administrative mode of thing. Other side it's a completely decentralized type of work. So I see this as two extremes. So I'm curious whether the optimal approach falls somewhere in the middle. I'm just curious because I don't know. Because both have its own benefits and its own limitations.
Say one of the countries which is very seriously pursuing the river restoration is US. US. They have created a database of 39,000 river segments, and which they are really, of this. Finally, again, that unless and until the people they take up, they get involved in the restoration measures, it is not going to, not going to last. Same sort of a thing came from UK. See, UK, one of the somebody who was from the housing program met husband wife with you. One of our students is working with the river restoration program in UK. They are trying to connect in the London, all the rivers they are trying to connect. Again, the issue is the same. So it is not that say that Trivandrum is completely departmental and Aleppo is completely people. Aleppo has a department. So the way Aleppo program was organized, it is the local self-government, Aleppo municipality, then the resident association, then there are the departments involved. But what is important there that the frame was large, like IIT brought. Okay, Kila brought. So you get a, intellectually you get a little bit larger input. At the same time, this year. Second thing is, it has never been thought that we have to remove the people. See, I do not know whether you have visited. When we visited that area, that's it.
I have.
You have visited the wetland area.
Yeah.
Yeah. That they have created a small wetland. These sort of a thing. We are not going to create a very big wetland. There's a small wetland has been created. There is a group of families living. They are living there, but their sanitation has been provided. Now, so, but the moment you are into the engineering solution, the first thing what you see that okay, remove everything, and then you construct, and you construct a wall. Previously, if you look into the Aleppo earlier, see, in the Aleppo area, I am working maybe from 84 onwards. The canals had been lined. Canals were cleaned earlier. With some collector, they are taking advantage and obviously, but it was never lasting. So it is only when the program has been conceived in a total, like a totality, in a holistic manner, then only you see the issue which is emerging. So that is the thing which is Aleppo's lesson. That you try to look in the holistic way and address the problems at its root, involve the largest possible groups, those who are technologically equipped, and the departmental approaches, they look into in a very narrow way. And people's participation gets limited. That's a stakeholders issue gets limited only in the discussion table, not on the execution table, not on the decision making table. That difference is very black. So it is not the in-between. The way is very simple. Since how really you get one, the frame larger. The second, the people become part of the decision-making process and also acting. Means how to empower the people. And try to create a situation where they themselves take care of their water bodies. That is a sort of my submission.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, I have
No, I'm more addressing the students. You tell me, what have you learned from this? Them ask me a question. What is the methodology he was employing in this analysis? It's a comparative perspective. He's comparing 6 Indian cities. And what are the components that he was comparing? I don't think he has done independent data analysis, except for, I don't know, even others is taken. But he has compared the intensity of the problem between the cities. I don't know if he has made a comparable per capita waste generator, per capita water availability.
No.
It has to be put into certain.
Yeah, that's standard. Yes.
Second, what are the solutions? In all of them, there are certain technological choices that are being made. That is there even in Aleppo. You have water, the regeneration of the desilting of the canals, rebuilding the embankment, which is costly. Something like 300 crores would be spent on that. Okay, so you look at what are the technological, compare the choices that are made. But then, how do you sustain this? For which, very important, there's a mindset change of the people. You can clean the city, water body once. You can build beautiful embankments and beautification and so on. But if you continue to have no treatment and your waste all are dumped again, very soon it will degenerate. You see. I think that's where Aleppo would stand differently. I don't know about the success. That depends on various other things. I do not know. It is up to you to answer. To what extent the citizens were involved in planning and executing. So that's how you generate awareness and commitment. They should become involved in it. Otherwise, you have got punishments. Okay, you do this, you are violation, you are punished. That all is very difficult to implement. See. So that's what the analysis he has done. One, the intensity of urban water problem in these major 6 cities. I think you should draw some typology of that.
Yeah.
Yes. And second, how technological choices made. Aleppo, it will be more small scale regional technological choices made, while Nagpur and particularly Nagpur, you have huge interventions which are very costly, some centralized interventions. But whatever you do, sustaining this would involve people's awareness and participation. That a big effort was made in Aleppo, which has had some positive impact. But I wouldn't say at the end of the day, where you have to depend upon people who are involved and so on and so forth. But the municipality is still carrying forward. See, even in Trivandrum, when it came to clear, they had at least the rural clear was done in a big participation way. And in fact, I went this flood time to those areas, water was flowing clean, things were waste were not still being not dumped in the area. It has been effective. But in urban area, they couldn't replicate what they did here. Yeah.
So one person is waiting in online to ask questions.
Yeah.
Online question is fine. Yes.
Hello. Am I audible? Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me to ask a question. And thank you, sir, for the very wonderful and informative session. We are able to gain an insightful knowledge about the water, urban water cycle, its management and restoration. Sir, I have a doubt. As per your presentation, we are able to understand that the people-centric approach or the stakeholder participation in Aleppo become a successful model. So also when we look into the other states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh or Karnataka or any northern state, there are so many NGOs working in this sector like agriculture sector, irrigation sector and water resource management. But when we look into Kerala, I think NGOs are not taking up or there are not much NGOs working in these sectors. So do you think if the operation of NGO increases here, will it help us to have more successful stories like Aleppo? Or sir, why there are not so much NGOs working in Kerala, as per your experience?
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's a nice issue, in fact. Now, Kerala does not have an NGO. It is not really correct. There are many NGOs. We have plenty, but yeah, the way it is in the other state, they are working in different fields, particularly agriculture and water and environment. These two are not here because, see, here the panchayats are active. So when the panchayats are active and people are active through the panchayat, So there's not much of an, the scope or the space for the NGOs to get involved into those areas. If you look into even the government program, like I say, Harita Kerala Mission, under which more than 1 lakh volunteers were mobilized to work and identify the different, the stretches of river, what is the problem. We just, Professor Isaac was mentioning about the Killiar, that, the people are working, the panchayats got involved. Now, this is the space which is important. And let me tell you, I spent some time in my career working with NGOs for 2 years. And I have seen different NGOs in all over India. It is like this: government is bad, department is bad, we are good. So we actually, NGO, the space of NGO has come to empower the society, not empower themselves. And fortunately, we got a situation in Kerala where the panchayat takes the lead. So the people are involved, LSG, local self-government institutions are important. Kutumbasri, we have a very successful model. So we have this. What more we really need why really we need an NGO to really fill into this area? So that will be my submission, that here we are not feeling that problem, that if the NGO has to be brought this issue. In the case of the stakeholders, the NGO involvement and the stakeholders involvement is being spoken throughout the world. But again, it is only on the discussion level. Now, nobody really looks up to the empowerment. None of the NGO has a program that at what time we will be withdrawing ourselves. That, we have empowered the people, we have empowered the panchayat, let us withdraw. No, they don't have. So NGO becomes like any other government and other organizations, one of the groups. So that may be one of the reasons that as we have a successful panchayats and people's participation, and we have that People's Plan campaign, which actually mobilized the entire state. Like, see, today the type of people when you can mobilize for anything, we have the legacy from the People's Plan campaign. Because we understood the people's power and we understood how the people can be mobilized and involved. So I think we really need separately again NGOs to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the nice presentation. I have 2 points to mention. One is regarding the, is there any, if we introduce a uniform policy for the water conservation in Kerala, can we solve some of the, some common guidelines or something of that sort? And some specificities also to be considered for the districts. Can we, is it possible, such a state intervention, we can do that? That's the one point. The second point is, in Kerala, especially in cities, there are a lot of this borewells are digging. Whether it will affect the, our water bodies or the surface water. These are the 2 points.
Yeah. So for the first point, you say the water is a decentralized resource. Wherever it precipitates, it falls. It is not that centralized. So it's very difficult to have a uniform guideline, because the watershed characteristics are different. In general, you can tell a broad frame. And then in the case of a Kerala, we have a very interesting scenario. Interesting scenario in the sense, in geology, we tell overburden. Overburden means over the hard rock, the soil which formed. So the hard rock cannot hold any water. The water is only in the overburden. The soil which has formed over the hard rock, they only have it. And we have a laterite. The laterite is porous. When there is a rain, it immediately takes it. But at the same time, it creates, because the laterite is dominated by clay. Now the clay holds the water, does not release. So our specificity are so different that it is very difficult to really come out with a uniform something. This only has to be really looked into individually. The second part is, there's a lot of tendency to have a borewell. Borewell is going to create us a problem. Because in the urban areas, our groundwater recharge is very low. In fact, groundwater situation in Kerala is very, very precarious. And even whatever data we get from Central Groundwater Board, they tell that we are actually using as a whole only 56% of our groundwater. It is not so. Trivandrum district is already deficit. Because see, the moment you have a urban, so take this room, nothing can infiltrate. So if we go on taking this one, the what is called the built up, the surface area, the infiltration is very low. What happens is surface runoff means whatever rain falls, it moves. So it immediately moves and goes and becomes a storm water. So water does not go down. And if water doesn't go down, it cannot recharge. And our problem is because we are basically a hard rock terrain. So take Tamil Nadu, just opposite this one. Because these are, we have a large tract with the alluvium. Water comes in one place, slowly moves. In the hard rock area, water cannot move in that way. Because hard rocks are, again, fractured. There are intensive fractures within the hard rock. You'll see when the borewell they dig, they try to find out a fracture. They don't tell you are finding out a fracture. Technically, it is a fracture. Then only the borewell will be yielding. Otherwise, borewell will not yield. So, in this situation, that if you go on extracting the water without having the infiltration gallery or recharging the groundwater, we will be having a problem. And that problem is so serious because in the years of, when there will be dry, it is only groundwater can sustain us. If the groundwater is exhausted and it is polluted, then situation will be very bad. So it needs to be a lot of thinking process. Thank you.
So I have a question regarding the choice of cities. So you have taken 6 cities, but I didn't get the point behind the choice of 6 cities. What could be the other cities that could be taken for comparison?
See,
is there any?
I tell you, the cities which I left, like I say, you could have taken Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, Chennai. Okay, these are the large cities where they have the problem. Hyderabad, Bangalore. Okay, these are the cities you could have taken where there is a problem. But why I have taken this city, that technically riverfront development has been taken place only in Ahmedabad. No other city has really executed. They are now trying to replicate Ahmedabad. That is one. Pune has the maximum, the growth, very high growth rate. In fact, it is actually taking the rural area gradually, comes on this one. Case of Madurai was the intercity transfer. Because the city authority always trying to convince the people that we have a problem, we'll go to Periyar. It's a very dangerous thing that we don't have money to bring water from Periyar. So if we have the money, we'll bring water from the Periyar and your problem will be solved, which is not. And so what is happening is in the case of Nagpur is one city where there's a maximum investment is now going. And this is also one area where actually what the river, stresses of river, like as I told you, one stretch, they have been really given for the real estate. Upstream of Nagpur is now with Haldiram. That sort of a scenario has happened. So they are all typical cases, but everywhere there's a rejuvenation program, and rejuvenation program is basically on the technological solution, the big technological solution minus it. As Professor Isaac told, yes, in Aleppo also we are talking about the technology, but we are talking about people plus technology. Said nobody today can do anything without going for technology. Technology is basically it's the human brain, isn't it? To say it enables us to solve the problem. Technology is must, but technology is not end. That is not all. That's the sort of thing. Thank you.
I have a slightly different question. Aleppo, I may be wrong, but let me pose the question. You see, it's also a very important tourist destination and the canal-based tourism. Are they part of this, your, restoration of the water canal.
Yes.
Because that's, see, I am raising that because now contrast this with the Pune and Nagpur. Pune and Nagpur are among the, if you take the largest cities in India, other than this Bombay, Delhi and all,
Yeah.
Pune and Nagpur will find a place there.
Yeah.
And they have been growing, as you mentioned, Pune, it's not only Pune, Nagpur also, growing at such a pace that they are, engulfing almost everything. So the problem, so the sort of stakeholders you have in Aleppo, you probably don't have in the other cities. You cannot think of that sort of a dominant sort of a stakeholder. So don't you have, when you put these 6 cities, don't you have to put it in that larger sort of a context?
Yeah, there is some truth in what you said. Aleppo cleaning program, sanitation program is part of a larger program of regeneration of the city. Now, these canals are no more useful for transportation. There is no need. But if you rejuvenate the canals, bring them back to their old glory, and conserve the historic factories and buildings along the thing, then it becomes a heritage town, which can be linked to the tourism in the lake area. Now 5 lakh tourists come there every year, stay in the houseboat and go back. Nobody comes to the city. But suppose, say 2-3 lakh stay back in the city for a day or two, because it can be made a pleasurable experience of looking at the old commercial heritage of Kerala. Then the city is reborn. It becomes a tourist town. But without conserving the town heritage. So this is a part of it. So you tell the people, let the city become clean, then it means transformation of your economy and life. So that's a big motive. There's a big motive to drive it along. Why we insisted on participatory data collection and so on, by using students who have come from outside and so on, we could have done it bureaucratically with government machinery. The data collection itself can be made into a conscientization drive. When these kids go around collecting information, mapping it out and so on, people's curiosity is immediately aroused. They ask why this. So then you explain to them. It's a way of spreading the awareness. In fact, that's the reason we went for resource mapping. There was a big debate at that time. Where do you want to do? You can get satellite maps. But still we went. The reason is that it is not enough to produce the map. The people must own it up. So the data collection itself is converted into a consciousness race. But even for Ahmedabad, it's important that people understand the logic of this waterfront, how it is to say, will enable the city to grow economically, what they would gain from this, how their quality of life would be, because that involvement is necessary for sustaining it. They can clean up the city, the canal once, but to maintain it that way is a big challenge. So that's the difference. So it's a part of a larger economic vision of the town. I don't think anywhere they can total reinventing the town, a project for reinventing the town was. There would be cultural events like that art show which went there, like that. So that Aleppo comes to have a new image. That was the idea. And people were, responding to that. People were responding to that. That's right.
So this best experience of this indoor now, that is the best city.
But-
Indoor.
Ah.
Just clean city and most people, they are participating in cleaning city. And there are a lot of experience, I think.
Yeah, but I have not really looked into Indore for, it is not for anything that I have not looked into, because my thrust was the river restoration. See, the river restoration,
Maybe your presentation, instead of putting, contrasting that this is better, I think you should put, how do you address this question of involving people? And in other cities, there is no such program.
yeah,
That's it.
correct.
And
That may be, yeah. that should
that,
be one part.
slightly the kind of responses you got,
Yeah.
which is more,
Just,
this versus others, no.
yeah. it is not that-
Whatever be the intensity of problem
Yeah,
and the method technology that is chosen, you need to have it's what other programs didn't have such a clear program of involving the people in large way. This had. And second, technological choice you raised, say you can have centralized waste treatment plant. You can have centralized sewage treatment plant. Now, sewage treatment, when it comes, you need to have some system. You cannot, each one cannot treat the septage in their house. Certainly. But, given the geography and given the way and planned manner the cities have come up, it is very difficult to have a centralized sewage system. And therefore, you think of alternatives of regional or local treatment plant. That's where DWATS becomes important. In fact, in Aleppo, we tried 3 approaches. One is DWATS, where treatment takes place without anaerobic conditions, and which is then treated through grassy land, wetland. Then there was certain electrolysis method, 2-3 types. There are various technological choices available. You have to think about it. But one thing is that you need a septage somewhere. Without that, there is you cannot. You have to have some 1 or 2 septages in the town. Otherwise, this will ultimately end up in the water, septage. But even there is choice. There may be people who argue that you need to centralize things. But centralized treatment plants, unfortunately, nowhere is active except in Trivandrum, Kochino, Koilono. They're all stopped halfway.
Yeah.
Because there is a big resistance from the people. Even small septic plant in Calicut is creating such a commotion. See, this all has happened because you are not taking people into confidence. You begin to talk to them only when things erupt. Then only lines are drawn. They are that side, you are this side. No conversation is possible. So there is no point in hiding in front of people, but you suppose there are doubters, bring them to Trivandrum and show how septage is functioning without any problem. I have the experience, I have announced in the budget, any panchayat that puts up a septage plant will be given 10 crores of rupees for any development work they want. Still, nobody has claimed it. Even that announcement, there is no shortcut. You have to talk. And talk before this confrontation starts. See, so this is a method of making them aware. You get them involved in collecting data, identify this as the key problem of water pollution. So there must be some solution to it. So the citizens in this participatory manner must be made to come to this conclusion. Yeah. Say, anyway, this is seminar is, I hope is over.
Yeah.
My most effective way of conversing is, you ask them, where was your old latrine? Not part of the house. It will be far away, one corner of the field. But now where is the latrine? It's within the house, in the living room. You don't find it repulsive. You accept it. So now you can have this waste in your house, but you can't have it treated somewhere. It's a big deal. See, you have got to converse. There is no other way. Say, just give it a notice. Don't put it Aleppo, one model versus other model.
Yeah.
But there is this challenge. Choice of technology also, because of peculiar things in Aleppo, you choose deliberately what is appropriate for it. And you don't have waterfront, but you have embankments rebuilding taking place. No, there'll be cycling track and so on. But then this particular component is very dramatically missing in any one of them. Nowhere.
No.
So,
I just come to Narayan's one issue which you raised is very important. The type of stakeholder or the people involved in case of Aleppo and in other places are different. But the question comes, when you try to involve these people, those who are active in this area, like here the houseboat is an issue. Yeah, that's in the larger frame. So, in fact, there is one, I've not gone into this one, that any city has to be contextualized within the basin and within the district. That I had it. In fact, that was the end slide. But I was not really making into this one. That because the city is not a standalone. And the moment you contextualize, then the other actors comes. So that is there. But finally, the same issue. How do you put the people in? Because it is their problem. That's the thing. Thank you.
so, so
That is important.
let us conclude the discussion.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that you have
Thank you.
attempted to do
Thank
this. Yeah, question. Yeah, please.
No, it was actually the same question that Sir had raised. So. No,
So whether
but he articulated it way better than I would have.
no, you are attending his classes?
I mean, we did attend his class.
Or what?
Okay. So I am very privileged to be chairing this session because, as he mentioned, we have been working together on this from late 1970s. And even later, in the 2000s beginning, he was with me in Mararikulam. We were trying to design an eco program for my constituency. Did the resource mapping for all the villages. I not actually searching and found the report that you had prepared at that time. So I was preparing studies in decentralized development. So I thought I must take out this book. So finally I found the report in one of my boxes. So you see, it's a kind of inquiry and work stretching over nearly 3 decades. Now finally finding fruitful in a comprehensive report in a comparative perspective. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I think you are entering your most productive phase of life. Books after book every year, geography, Kerala geography book, and so no problems, no running fever.
No. What's the message?
Okay.
Sir, thank you very much.
Yeah.
There is the final ceremony of for the program. I would like to start by thanking the speaker of the day, Dr. Sri Kumar Chattopadhyaya, for introducing us and educating us about the urban river restoration and various approaches therein. We have really learned a lot today, sir, by listening to you. And this is a topic of utmost importance, and you exposed various approaches and the importance of people's participation and decentralization in urban restoration. I would like to thank Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac for taking his time and joining us, and also sharing the experiences, how the planning was actually envisaged and went about in what is now coming out to be as the best model for urban river restoration program. I would like to thank the participants for a very rich discussion. And I also would like to thank Professor K.J. Joseph, the director, who is always encouraging in organizing seminars and also conducting seminars on a timely basis. And last but not the least, I would like to thank the support system for making the entire process very, very seamless. Thank you, and bye until we meet next time. Thank you very much, sir.